year, but we might have a yoga class that we have to set up for, Scrabble game and, an HOA meeting and some concert. But it's nice because we're small enough that we can still be very adaptable to what residents want, need, and
So stop at the table, pick up a packet and a bag,
which is nice.
please.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Very well, good to see you. You have that already?
Thank you.
You just want to take the seat on the dais next to Doug and
I
we'll
didn't
get
think to
started.
bring a
Up here?
sign-in sheet.
Up here, yes.
Okay.
I didn't think to bring a sign-in sheet.
Okay.
If you have one, if not, just send around a piece of paper.
Okay, I'll send it around.
You,
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Can I sign, I know all their names, I can take care of it?
Nice to see you.
Hi, I'm Lois Albertson, I'm the library director.
Oh, hi. Lynn, thank you.
And we are on Channel 99 and it will be televised, so when we're speaking, just turn on your microphone so that we're recording.
Smile for the camera. Where is the camera?
The cameras are right there, and then you have one here on your podium.
I think what I'll do is I'll do this. Can you hear me?
No, we can't.
I hate cameras.
Well, you're on. Okay, we'll get it started. Okay, we're going to start. Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee meeting on Wednesday, January 15, 2020 at 1 p.m. in the Commission chambers. Please silence your cell phones. At this moment, we'll have roll call. Member J.B. Frost, he is absent. Member Hillman. Present. Member Hankin.
Present.
Member Albertson.
Present.
Member Cuevas, here. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So our first order of business will be the appointment of a chairperson / a census liaison. At this time, would any members like to nominate a chairperson?
I would suggest you, if you would be so willing.
Sure, I would definitely be willing to take that. Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting it.
Absolutely. And at this time, we now need to appoint a vice chairperson. Is there any members that would like to make a nomination?
Would you like to volunteer?
I would be happy to.
Marvelous.
And I will second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Lois.
You're welcome.
And thank you for accepting.
Okay. And at this time, we'll have the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? If I hear none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Now we'll go to public comments. This time, this is a dedicated time for the public to speak. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to speak, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. I don't think we have anyone willing to speak, so we'll move on. Next, we have a presentation from Sandy Goodman with the U.S. Census.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. When we think about the census, we have obstacles. And in many communities within Palm Beach County, those obstacles are real. They're language, they're hidden communities within the same area where there's fear. But in the town of Highland Beach, we don't have those obstacles. We don't have any obstacles of language. We don't have any obstacles other than seasonal residents. And that's what's going to be the focus of my information that I'm going to give to you and the tools in which we might be able to use in order to capture that count. But I'm going to start with a short presentation about the census. So bear with me, I'm going to run through it quickly. We're part of the Atlanta Regional Office. There are 7 states in there, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Florida is the most populated of those, and our region is the most populated in the country. There are 6 regions altogether. We do the census because it's required by the Constitution. Article 1, Section 2 requires that we take a population count every 10 years, and since 1790, it has happened every 10 years, always on the 0 year, and no matter what happens, we count people. We ask you to apply yourselves and do things because of 2 reasons: political power and money. Political power relates to the number of seats in the House of Representatives. And when you think about it, there are 438 seats in the House, 435 belong to states. Each state is required to have at least 1. But the rest of those seats are determined based upon the population that is counted in the states across the country. And when you think about that, the more people that get counted, the more secure you are in getting an appropriate and just representation. The other part is money. Money, in a similar way, is based upon the population count, and the government distributes $675 billion each year for the next 10 years or more, and I'll talk about that, based upon population count. And that 675 is just a part of the federal budget, but it's the part of the budget that relates to services and things for people. It doesn't relate to the government operation or the military or anything else like that. And if we think about what that dollar amount will be, in Palm Beach County, they've identified the value of a person who doesn't get counted as $1,600 per year, $16,000 over the 10-year period. But they've just re-estimated that based upon the George Washington University study, which has elevated that $675 billion to $800 billion. So that number is going to be up to around $2,000. And there's talk about that maximum number of related to services for people going up to 1.4 trillion. At 1.4 trillion, each person will be worth about $4,000 a year, or $40,000 over 10 years. But census doesn't talk about money. But it's important to note that that money is significant, and in some portions of the county, it would make the difference between them raising taxes or cutting services. So the map that you're looking at there is the current configuration of the House of Representatives based upon population from 2010. We do not do a recount halfway in and say, oh, well, look, everything shifted, let's reapportion the seats. It doesn't. It only happens on the 0 year. And if you look at that map, there are 4 states that stand out. The biggest is California. They have 53 seats. Then comes Texas. And then comes Florida and New York, tied with 27. They're for third, place. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're projecting unofficially that Florida is going to pick up 2 more seats. Why? Because what happened in 2008 is that migration from the north to the south had hit a pitfall because of the economy, and since then it has revitalized that flow. We're getting about 800 people per day coming into Florida. So the census data is used in a variety of ways. When we think about it, it's for hospitals, schools, emergency services, bridges, tunnels, roads. By the way, when you think about emergency services, we're right on the water here. Had Dorian hit here, there would have been a need for an emergency response. The emergency response is provided via FEMA. FEMA uses the population that's counted from the last census, which would have been 2010, and therefore they would have deployed the resources to handle 80 or 75% of your population. I use an example. There's a town a little further north of here where they have a population of 1,000, and in the 2010 census, only 300 were counted. And I said to those people in the room, I said, what were the other 700 of you going to do if Dorian hit and they deployed Humvees and evacuation vehicles for 300 people? The other 700 were going to have to stand on your roof. So that's a part. We focus on privacy and confidentiality. It's included in the law so that we can't reveal any information, including people who apply for jobs, so that no matter what it is, from that first keystroke or that call that you make, that information is kept confidential. And Census will never ask for anything like social security number or donations or PIN codes or do anything on behalf of a political party. We are not a political organization. We do this to count people. And there are a variety of other actions that the Census Bureau undertakes in order to count people or count information about people, and the most significant of which is the American Community Survey. The American Community Survey was established in 2005 and replaced what used to be called the long form of the census. Up until 2000, people would either get a short form of about 10 questions or a long form, which is about 50 questions. And if you got a 50 questionnaire, you knew about it. But in 2005, they came out with the American Community Survey, and they eliminated the long form. We referred to the American Community Survey as the old long form on steroids. So the thing that I want to draw your attention to is that while the census went on in 2010, and while it's going to go on in 2020 and 2030 and forever, that American Community Survey is still going to be out there. And it gets sent to 250,000 addresses each month, regardless of, the census or not. And I don't want people to confuse the fact that in December or January or February or March, they actually get the invitation to respond to the American Community Survey online, and for them to say, well, I already did it. I did it in January. No, you would have responded to the American Community Survey, and that is not the census that counts people. We call that census that counts people the decennial census because it's done every 10 years. So in 2010, we had paper. Everyone got that invitation by the mail. It came with a prepaid return envelope, and we waited for responses. For 2020, we've come into the real world of technology, and the invitation is going to say, welcome to the 21st century. Please come online. Here is your code. It will open up a special portal just for your address. Answer the 9 questions for the first person and the 8 questions for every person thereafter. It's encrypted, it's safe, it's easy, and it's very important. If you choose not to use the internet as your primary method of self-response, you can also use your phone. You can use your phone, your smartphone, and respond the same way as you would through a computer, or you can use a tablet and do it. But if you don't want to do it because, for whatever reason, the only thing you use the technology for is Facebook or video games, then you're not going to do it, and we may not be able to convince you. But you can use your phone, and you can call in to you'll be connected to one of the 5 call centers across the country with a person wearing a badge like this who's a sworn officer of the United States government, and they will take your information and encrypt it the same way as it would be as if you keyed it in through the internet. If you don't respond either by phone or by internet, after about 15 days, you're going to get a couple of reminders, but then what's going to happen is about April 8th, you're going to get the paper questionnaire. And it's going to come with a reminder, and it's going to say, this is important, you got to do this. If you get that paper questionnaire and you still don't respond, after about 10 days, people are going to start following up with a knock on the door, ring the bell, whatever. But the important thing is that we need to get everyone counted. This is the timeline as to what we have gone through since when we started with the census back in 2018 going up through now. And it lays out those dates. The census will continue to collect information until the census says it's over. which means that all three of those options for responding will remain open, including the online response, the telephone call, or the paper, until the census says enough. And they won't say enough until we've got 95% of the people. So it's a big thing. It may go on until July, maybe even August. The goal of the 2020 census is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. And that is the issue that I want to focus on. When we talk about in the right place, people who live here part of the year and someplace else part of the year are going to get the invitation, in theory, in both places. But they're getting it here in March. And they're getting it here with the expectation of them responding here. So our goal, the goal of the people on this committee and the goal of the town of Highland Beach is to wake those people up and say, you weren't here 10 years ago. Now, how do I know that? Well, you have a paper, which I gave this morning, which highlights the reason that they weren't counted. This paper over here shows that the number of housing units in the town is 1,767, yet only 1,101 responded. Wow.
Right. Maybe the question mark on that.
That is because those people who are seasonal residents didn't show up for the count. Now, part of that was that the questionnaire that went out in 2010 went out in the beginning of April, and it was mailed. And the second part is that many of the people, even if they would have gotten it in the beginning of April, didn't know that they could respond that they live here. There is no requirement like it used to be for homesteading in Florida, where you had to say that you live here 6 months and 1 day in order to get the benefit of homestead so that your taxes didn't go up as much as other people. There is no requirement that you have your driver's license here. There is no requirement of anything other than where you say you are or where you will put your head on April 1st. And there's a 6-page flyer that you have that was in a handout, which explains 6 pages worth of what happens if, what happens if, what happens if. And the answer in almost all of them is, it's where you say you live or where you will put your head on April 1st. So when you get the invitation on March 12th, the important thing will be to go online, do it, and be finished. That way there's no follow-up, there's no reminder mailings to you, and you'll do a great service to the town. We put local government, CCCs, to include the government, media, minority organizations, community organizations, workforce development, faith-based institutions, businesses, HOAs, condo associations, anything that has connection to people. Because the one thing that we found out was that the way you can convince people to do something is through people who they know and people who they trust. So those are the mechanisms because those are trusted organizations. You're a trusted organization. You live here, you know the people. In fact, when the census goes to hire people to do the non-response follow-up, they only hire people on the ground from the communities in which they're going to have to do non-response follow-up. And the theory is very simple. If you know the people, then when they knock on the door, you can, oh, hi, Mary. You know, I know you. I see you in Publix all the time. And that establishes that trust relationship, so you're not a stranger. If I went knocking on every door that didn't respond, they wouldn't open the door. They don't know me. They don't trust the government, especially if I'm wearing a badge. So these are the obstacles in other communities. They don't apply here. Hidden overcrowded housing. I got to tell you, I was in a city a little further up north, and their main focus was how do we get the people who are residing in one family unit, but there are 3 families. And instead of being 4 people there are really 16. And the other people are afraid. They have all those obstacles. And when it comes time to them getting the invitation, they're going to get the invitation. And if someone lifts it from the mail and responds, that's it. if the first family that gets it responds for 4 people, then the census is not going to be looking for the other 12 because they don't know they exist. So that's a real big obstacle in some places. It is not the obstacle here. The census will support the Complete Count Committee in a variety of ways. We provide digital assets, we provide information. You can ask how many times I have sent her information via the email. And we exchange information back and forth. And if there's anything we can do, including posters, we're now expecting, they're being delivered to my house on Friday. I'm not sure of the quantity. I know I asked for 1,000 of each, but I'm not sure I'm going to get them. But for posters for storefronts, for organizations, for HOAs to put up in their local and congregating place. And the robust advertising campaign started this week. You are going to see $500 million worth of advertising that the census contracted for in every media you can imagine, from social media to print media to television and radio and everything else that exists. And it's all being done by a professional organization. I'm not doing it because I wouldn't know one end to the other. So this is the contact information for the region and for me, which you have, and that's the end of the formal presentation. So, do I say good luck? No, maybe not. Okay, so,
Quick question.
sure,
The data sheet that you
Yes.
gave us, the demos, this is the 2010?
2010,
census data?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
We don't have a 2020, and there was nothing in between.
Okay.
So the only things that change on that sheet, if you looked at if it existed in 2010, was the demographic information based upon the responses to the American Community Survey. And if you look at the top line, I believe it says the response to the American Community Survey was something like 89%.
Yeah, 79.5.
Okay. So, well, another community with 89.
Okay.
So,
Teresa, does the town have updated information? Certainly, the housing units have exploded since 2010.
The town doesn't maintain, we actually rely on the county for that information. But the building department may have something that, are you thinking about all the property owners that we have with the new development?
There's new developments, there's new things that have happened since 2010.
Correct.
If we're going to try and outreach a lot of these communities, then we need to know how many and where they are and who they are.
Yeah.
Right.
I know, for example, the population is up 50%.
Yeah, absolutely.
So housing has to be up somewhat.
Well, just, I mean, if
Well-
you've lived here for 2 years, they've been building.
let me explain the answers to the question. Between 2018 and October of 2019, the county and all of the municipalities engaged in a program called
Luca.
LUCA,
Yes.
Local Update Address Canvassing. And what they did was they certified that the addresses matched in terms of the property appraiser and the county records and the town records. So that, and we did have a couple of issues. As a matter of fact, in that town when I talked about it before, 2 buildings weren't included in their census tract, so that had to be changed.
That
But,
was in
South
Palm
Palm.
Beach, right?
Yes. But how did you know that? Okay,
there was a-
I'm glad you talked to one another. That's a wonderful thing. So we're relatively certain that all of the addresses that are listed as resident addresses have been captured and will receive the letter.
And if I may, Lynn, just to go back to your question, our Luca liaison was actually Palm Beach County Planning and Zoning Department. So I worked with them, it was probably about a year ago, and they made sure that we had all the properties correctly addressed, and they went through, and they were our liaison through that process.
So you, and this may be very specific, so at this point in time, do you have a complete list of all the, at least the communities or main addresses in Highland Beach?
We do. We recently just obtained a full address list from the property appraiser, so we do have that, yes.
So I think it's time now to go towards the questionnaire. You have a copy of it. The questions that the census asks are non-invasive. They ask name, age, race, a phone number of the person who's filling it out, sex, date of birth, Hispanic origin or not, and if you own or rent. And then there are some supplementary questions, like if you own or rent, if you own, do you have a mortgage or do you have an equity line? When it comes to a question that I didn't address, which is how many people live or stay in this unit? Now, that's a tricky question, and it's one that leads people to have to think a minute. It includes the grandparents, the children, the aunts, the uncles, the friends who are staying there. It includes everyone. So what you have to do is when that option comes up, there's a 2-digit box. You can fill that in from anything from 1 to 99. And if there are 13 people living or staying in your unit, they all need to be counted. So going online is an easy thing. It's very easy. It takes about 5 minutes per person. There are only those 9 questions for the one who's doing it and 8 questions thereafter. But in order to assure that you're not going to be timed out, and I'll explain, I'm suggesting that each and every person with more than 3 or 4 people living in that apartment or unit or house gather the information that's included on the questionnaire in advance so that they're ready and they can go boom, 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 and be finished. If they have to look for information, remember this is basic information. If we have to look for information, it is possible, not likely, but possible that if they have a period of non-activity when they're doing their online submission, and that non-activity reaches 15 minutes. Now, 15 minutes is a long time. But if they reach 15 minutes, the system will time out. And when it times out, they won't be able to get back in. It will still have all the information that they put in, so in theory, if there are 5 people in the house and they were able to put in 4, but they couldn't figure out the date of birth for the 5th person and they were calling on the phone because they were working and they didn't know and they didn't get an answer back and 15 minutes is gone, that's it. That person won't be counted through the online. However, knowing that, they will be able to call the 800 number and say, hey, we just submitted the questionnaire, but we left off one person. I'm the person they left off, and they'll be able to give their information.
Sandy,
Yes.
you had an opportunity to actually use the online beta system?
It is not open. It is not open for us to use.
Okay,
We have
'cause
not had a
The questions
chance.
I would have is, if it times out, is there a screen that comes up and says, you have timed out due to inactivity, please call this 800 number to complete your application?
I do not know. It would make sense that that would be, but I do not know. Once we know, we will communicate with every municipality and tell them that as a heads up so they can communicate it to everyone else.
I have a second question.
Okay?
Do you have, and it's not my last, but do you have a graphic or a photo of the actual envelope that's going to be sent?
Not the envelope, but the wording inside the envelope.
No, I want to see the envelope.
We do not have the envelope.
As we present to people,
We
want to say, this is what's going to be in your mailbox.
We will-
Look for this.
We will have the image of the envelope relatively shortly. I don't know what that means, but it will definitely be before March 1st. And again, we're going to distribute that so that everyone can be aware. You know,
Sandy,
what,
do you have any juice with the Atlanta office?
No.
Because,
I'm going to be with them this
No,
weekend.
Because, here it is, it's January 15th. These letters are mailed out, they're going to be mailed out, people are starting to get them March 12th.
March 12th.
Correct? You have less than 2 months. We probably have to try and get to as many communities as we can in our town. If we had this material, if we had a picture of the envelope, we can't wait until March 1st. We can't go back to, 200 communities and show them.
As I said-
We're presenting now.
Yeah.
As I said,
Now.
I don't know.
This week.
All I can tell you is that the envelope will be an official envelope with a seal on it.
Well, that's all great, but it's not helping us now.
And I got to tell you, we got to go back a little bit. When we started this, do you remember what I said that we're going to get? I said that we're going to get a postcard. Do you remember that? I said everyone's going to get a
Postcard with a
postcard.
geo-
The postcard's going to have a
Yeah,
geocode on
The
it.
geocode.
Can
And-
you request this?
Wait, and what I did was, I went back up the chain of command and I said, we need to have a copy of the postcard in advance to prevent people from throwing it out as junk mail.
Same with the
At
envelope.
that point, they switched and they said, nope, we're going to do an envelope.
Can you request this? Can you go up, can you call someone in Atlanta, whoever, and say, you know, my state really would like to have a photo of the album? They must have let me say this.
Yeah.
They've got to have already printed them. If they're going to send this thing out to 50 million households, 100 million households, whoever they have to have them already. They can't start printing them the day before they send them out. You know what I mean?
I don't
Just
know
makes
the
sense.
answer, but I'm going to be with the Atlanta regional people this weekend, and I'll ask the question.
Yeah, tell them to bring a couple of envelopes and then take a picture with your phone.
Okay, so now that we understand the questionnaire,
You're 100%.
and we realize that there are no obstacles to responding, we still have to get to the issue about why people in this town who don't have a care in the world should respond to the census.
Well, before you do that, I have a question on the
Yes.
questions. Question 9. We've
Yes.
had this questionnaire, so I've shown it to a number of people. And probably I've shown it to 6, 7 people, half a dozen, and half of them asked me how to answer question 9.
Okay? Read me question 9. Do you think I'm...
Question 9 says, what is person number 1's race? And it says white. Print, for example, German, Irish, English, Italian, Lebanese, Egyptian, etc. And so I was asking people like people that sit here.
You can self-identify as whatever nationality, I would think, in terms, it's not race.
Well-
White is a race. Black is a race. But I think country of origin, or those that you would identify yourself as, you know, you can do that. I believe
Say
you could do
American.
multiple.
Can you say American?
Sure,
You've been
I
here
don't
for
know.
5 generations or whatever?
That question is there so that people can declare themselves for the purpose of preserving the ideals or the awareness of their communities, of the life that they came from or still associate with. It's not meant to trick anybody.
Well,
I would say-
maybe they're overthinking it because below it says black or African American, then it goes on to American Indian,
Right.
Alaskan.
By the way,
Native.
the people who want that question the most are the Indian tribes. Because the way they're counted is not just the people on the reservation, but the people who move off the reservation, and this is the only way to capture them as part of that Indian tribe. So I think you're reading too much into it.
But I think you've said before in previous things that I've talked to you about, question 8 and 9 are people question, why are they even there? Okay? And Sandy's right. These have been lobbied for
Mhm.
by the specific, like the Hispanic community lobbied for number 8.
Right.
And other people have lobbied for inclusion in number 9 so that they could identify how many people are in that community or of that race.
Right. Number 8 deals with something that the census already has predicted, that by 2040, the majority population in the country will be of Hispanic origin. So we know that. And what they're trying to do is to make sure that the reports demonstrate that and back that up.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, I have no personal issue here, okay? I didn't know how to answer it for them. Okay, the question was race, and American is not race,
That's right.
so I didn't know what to tell them. That's it.
Well,
The-
check the race first and then,
The answer that I believe most people will use is white, black, or Hispanic. That's the answer that they would use.
I'm not trying to belabor
No.
it, but it's not laid out that way. It's
I understand.
You check white, and then you write in,
What
for
subgroup?
example, white German, white
Right.
Irish, white English, white Italian.
Right.
So now you're saying I should tell them white American, if you're none of the above.
If you just leave white, it won't ask for anything more. It only gives you the choice of putting it in. It's
You
not a
can leave it
requirement.
So you don't have to fill out that line.
It does not say that.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're going to have,
So you can just check
Census
the
is gonna have
box
a
and you
problem.
don't have to fill out that line.
okay.
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 Well, it says X one or more boxes
And print.
capital letters in bold,
Right.
and.
Okay, so put something in. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
That's what I tell them.
I want to go on to how we get your population counted. And you and I had this discussion a few months ago.
Yeah.
And the answer is the people who live here for a reason. They love it. They really think it is paradise. And for whatever number of months a year they're here, they take for granted the fact that the things are the way they want them to be. That the beaches and the waterfront and the intercoastal and the roadways and the services that are there are automatic. Well, they're not automatic. Someone has to speak on behalf of the actions that are needed to be taken in order to maintain those things. Water and sewer, for example. And that person who speaks, or the way in which they get that voice, is based upon their state representative that deals with Highland Beach. And that state representative is based upon population count when they reapportion the state lines to determine where representation is. It's based upon population, that census population. And it's only done every 10 years. So if we picked up here, 600, 1,200, 4,000 people, it will make a difference in terms of where those district lines are drawn and how significant that state representative will be in terms of representing this town. Yes?
How do they determine if somebody does happen to fill it out twice, once here and at their northern address? How do they determine which is the correct place?
One of the questions that we don't talk about is embedded in there is, do you have another place that you live or stay at another point in the year? So that's their cross-verification. Plus, they know they have all kinds of databases to be able to cross-reference and eliminate duplicates. They will not permit a duplicate. And one of the things that has come up repeatedly is, and it may not apply here, but what about kids who go to college? Where are they counted? Are they counted in their parents' home, or are they counted someplace else? And the answer is, if they're away at college and they're in a dorm, they're counted by the college under a program which we call group quarters. And if they're not on campus and they live in an off-campus house or rent a room or stay with someone, they're counted at that local address where they are when they're there. So someone asked me what happens during spring break and they're back here. Well, I just found out yesterday that spring break is over on March 12th. So people are going back to wherever they go to school unless they decided when they came down here or here for spring break that I'm finished with school, I'm not going back, and then they would be counted here with their parents. I'd like to go now to some of the new messaging we have. For businesses and medical organizations, the data that the census captures and uses is more powerful than gold. That information is critical for determining how businesses and hospitals and clinics will prepare. I already told you about the advertising. I told you about we're entering now the ground game, and we collectively are the ground team. And until we get motivated and moving so that people listen to our messaging, we haven't accomplished our job. So what are the ways in which you will come up with in terms of getting to those populations that we know are going to be difficult to count? How do we get the seasonal resident who lives someplace else in the country during the year to give up the fact that, well, I live in Marlborough, New Jersey, I'm going to wait and go back there and get counted, when they're here on March 12th and April 1st? How do we do that? How do we convince them? What do we say? What are the words? What mode are we going to do it in? Are we going to go door to door and talk to them? Are we going to bring them in and say, all seasonal residents, come on in. We need to have a group meeting so we can convince you to do the census here. Maybe that'll work. Maybe not. Maybe the notices on the website will help. Maybe flyers that they would see in Publix or other places. Maybe the things on the doors that are put on there to support being counted here. There are many cities throughout Palm Beach, including Palm Beach County, has adopted slogans that say, "Count me in Palm Beach. Count me in Delray Beach. Your count is important for Boynton Beach." Whatever they are, they're trying to muster support from the people who see that. And I think that's what, in my opinion, that would be a good way of doing it. But it's what you think. You're the committee. You're the ones who, with the leadership and the support of Census, can send that messaging out and capture those people. Trish?
Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate your presentation. Does anyone have any other questions for Sandy at the moment? Okay, so to move on with the agenda, we'll have next the approval of minutes, which we don't have any. Old business, we don't have any of that as well. And now we'll go on to new business. So this is a discussion on current and future town commitments, and leads into what Sandy was just discussing. Included in our agenda packet, there's a letter outlining the current actions that the town has taken. To name a few, we have the website dedicated to the census. We've included the Census 101 flyer during Light Up the Holidays in each attendee's gift bag. The mayor, commissioners, town manager, they've been mentioning at public meetings and any meetings that they have been attending on their own. They're making sure to bring the awareness to the census. We've sent out communication to the condo managers and presidents to request that a commissioner or a staff member attend their annual meetings in order to talk about the census. Every email that goes out from the town has a signature line that includes the census, Be Counted in Highland Beach, as well as a link that takes them directly to our census page. Channel 99 has a recurring slide about the census. Our census partner, Jacqueline Frost, who is here with us, she has been setting up outside of the library, making sure that all the residents that are coming into the library know about the census and engaging those residents. And then we've also included in the monthly report, the monthly manager's report, a little snippet about the census, and we'll also be including the job advertisement in the upcoming report that will go out on Friday. We have two events that are in town. There's Election Day. Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, we're not having a municipal election. So there will not be the resident traffic coming through Town Hall. However, the polling location for the presidential primary is St. Lucy's Church. So I just bring that up because that is, I think, a good point of contact to get residents that are coming out to vote to be encouraged to fill out their questionnaire for the census. And then we also have Spring Fling, March 21st here in the Town Hall parking lot. And I've worked with the clerk's office and they said we can have a table to set up any information, to give out materials, and to talk to all the residents that attend the event and make them aware of the census. So at this time, I just want to kind of get our thoughts together as the committee, what we'd like to do going forward. A couple of ideas that I jotted down. Maybe we would like to create a one-page flyer that has all of the important information that we need to get out to the residents all in one page, maybe possibly including the 9 questions that are going to be on the questionnaire so that people can see what they're going to be answering when the questionnaire is mailed out. And if we do create that flyer, we send it out to our email subscription list through the town, send it to the condo managers so that they can post it in their common areas. I know Sandy just mentioned that there's some posters coming in from the census, so if we can request some posters and we can give those out to the condo managers and the presidents to post in their common areas. Obviously, Town Hall, we can put out flyers on the bulletin board, in the spindle when people come into Town Hall. At the library as well. And then we have the advisory board luncheon coming up. This is a luncheon for the advisory board members of the town. But in that program, we can include something about the census in that as well. So those are just a few ideas that I had. I don't know how the members feel about that. If you want to move forward with some of those, just trying to get everyone's thoughts. Yes, Sandy?
I have one more suggestion.
Sure.
We don't have a very large committee. And I'm not saying that numbers count in terms of the effectiveness of the committee, but I'm going to ask that each of you bring with you someone else who you feel would be an asset in reaching people. because this doesn't have to be a 3-person, 4-person, or 5-person operation. We have a 10-person operation, we have a better chance of reaching more people. You must know someone who can stand up and help to get everyone counted. That's what I'm asking. And thank you, I'm going to depart now.
Thank you very much.
You know, one more thing. There was an article in the Sun Sentinel dated the 13th of January. It says, Florida stands to lose millions for undercounting children in the census. It was an extensive article. I printed out 4 pages. I'll send you a copy, but the idea is that it went through, and again, children are not an issue in this town, but it went through the implications of children not being counted. And for 10 years, they weren't counted because whenever they weren't, they just weren't there. And the impact on the school systems, on the town, on the services that are provided to children, it impacted every child who was not counted. So that's something to think about, and I leave.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, all the commissioners are 100% supportive, and they have offered to dedicate their time to go to any annual meetings or any events that we see fit or that we want them to attend, as well as the town manager and most of the staff. They're all on board.
I would suggest that we really take a proactive approach to this. We don't wait for the homeowners associations to call us and say, can you send someone here?
Absolutely.
Please call me.
I've already reached out to them, and now I've reached out to them via email. Now I'm going to pick up the phone and call them to get on
And then
their,
schedule one of us, have a spreadsheet, have a calendar.
Yes.
Schedule whoever from the commission to us to go there and give how many minutes they will allow us,
yes.
and present them with, flyers, bookmarks, we have all that stuff.
That is exactly the idea. And I believe David Stern, your president,
Yeah.
he reached out. We have Bramer Isle. There's just been a few that have contacted Toscana. I mentioned it to them as well. But that's my next goal, is to pick up the phone now that I haven't been getting email responses and schedule them.
A census person to come.
Exactly, yes.
The timing on this is perfect because virtually all of them have their annual meetings,
in the next couple of months.
January, February, March. So that's why we corralled it now.
Right. I have a couple of other suggestions we might
Sure.
want to consider.
Absolutely.
According to this documentation, and this is now, I guess, information that's 10 years old,
Right.
okay? So it's probably higher, but there still is a fairly more, the demographics of the town are older, and maybe we want to have census response night at the library. Use the computers. We have been told, I represent the League of Women Voters, so we've been told, and by Sandy, that we can help people respond on the computer. They can bring their code with them, and we could sit at the computer and go to the website and put their information in, or help them put their information in.
Great idea.
I think that's a great idea. Lois?
And actually, one of my suggestions that I was going to make also is normally to use our computers or use the Wi-Fi on your own device, you have to have your library card. But to facilitate this process,
night,
because we do have some residents who don't have library cards, which is shocking, they should.
You'll
But
look the
that
other
we
way.
will,
It's shocking more that they don't have.
we'll give
internet.
them guest access, just to facilitate doing that, so.
So that would be one idea.
Absolutely,
The
I
other
love
idea,
that.
in order to drum up response or to promote that, maybe we could have like a lottery. If you come to census library, at library night, whatever, you're going to be entered into a drawing for 2 free dinners at the Delray Sands Hotel.
That's a great
We'll get them to
incentive.
donate them. Something like that.
That's a great
Just to get-
incentive.
Because otherwise, we might have 10 people at the library and we might have 3 people show up.
Right.
You want to get people to,
So are you thinking to actually have people doing the inputting of the information?
If they need that.
Is that allowed? I know
Yes.
in the library
Yes.
world,
yes,
we're
it
always
is allowed.
counseled
If
to
there's-
never physically input someone else's
If they're
information.
standing next to you, they can sit down and do it and you can say, okay, now go here and answer this question, whatever. If they feel uncomfortable doing that, if they're standing next to you, giving you the information, you can do it.
Do it, okay, because we've always been told there's a lot of liability.
can't do it for
that
them.
we can help them get onto the computer and pull up the.
I can't
a
come in with
form.
10 codes and put in whatever I want, but if
As
the
long as they're
person's
there.
with me, if
As long
they're
as they're
there.
Great.
right.
Great, good.
I think that's a great idea. Do we want to set a date for that now, and kind of get the ball rolling to get the
Yeah,
information
absolutely.
out there?
What, you know, the
Well,
library,
the cards go out,
March-
envelopes
Letters go
go
out.
out when? When do they physically
they
get this in
physically
their
start to
hands?
go out March 12th.
March 12th.
March 12th.
So, give them a week, give them
Yes.
10 days?
There is a flow chart, let's see. They go out by March 12th, and then they have a certain amount of days, and they can respond online or by phone. And if they don't respond, then by April 12th, they get mail forms going out. You know, they actually get
Pick it
mail.
around April 1-ish?
But, well, we gotta be careful about, you know, who's leaving town. You wanna capture all the snowbirds.
Well, anybody that's renting is gonna be like leaving maybe the 1st.
So maybe we should do it the end of March.
30th or 29th or something like
Yeah,
that,
so maybe we should
28th?
do it before, you know,
Before the 1st.
Before the
Yeah.
1st.
Yeah.
The 30th is a Monday. And the computers at the library are generally not very busy. I mean, it's not like scheduling something that we need the meeting room.
Okay.
So we have a lot of flexibility on when we could.
And I would suggest if you think people are leaving town by April 1st, that we even do it a couple of days in
Yeah, 'cause
advance.
they're
so not-
packing,
they're
getting ready to
packing and
go.
getting ready to go.
Right, and
Okay.
I know from the people getting seasonal cards, a lot of them do leave.
Yeah, their heads are
The
into
Canadians
something else.
especially.
So
So
back
will
it
we-
up to maybe that Friday or something.
I was gonna say the
mail
27th, but
enough
Friday
time.
I know is a busy day in the library.
Yeah, Friday is the worst day for us in terms of we are
Okay,
packed.
so, you know, even
all
like,
day.
the 24th, or the 23rd, or the
Anything around
25th, whatever, you know.
Okay, so
Whatever's
let's
good for
say the
everybody.
24th.
Either Tuesday, the 24th, or Wednesday, the 25th both of those would be
I think
good
those
options.
are good days.
24th and 25th. Doug, do you have a preference of either the 24th or the
whatever's good for
25th?
the library.
I will adjust whatever I need to adjust.
Okay, let's say the,
And then you can tell us what's better, whether you wanna do, the library's open what? Is it-
Till 8 PM on those nights.
So we would want a broad swath of hours.
I would say the 25th, just because the 24th is a commission meeting, if I'm not
Oh, so that might
mistaken.
be a better,
It's a what?
25th.
The 24th is, there's a commission meeting here at 1:30, so I'm saying Wednesday, the 25th would probably be a good day.
Okay.
All right, and what time frame are we looking at?
How many hours do you think?
Do you think it would be
How about,
good to do like late afternoon
I
through
think
evening?
afternoon into evening. You know,
So,
if you start, I don't know, like 3 o'clock to 8,
Uh,
5 hours, is that too much?
say 3 to 7 or 7:30,
Yeah, so
because
that
we
you can
want to
get
have
them
the
out.
time they need to be
Right.
out by 8.
Okay.
So 3 to 7?
3 to 7?
Do you want people to call in advance so we know how many we need to assist? I mean, you'd be open to anybody, but they can call to make it a reservation?
We find generally with library programs that RSVPing does not give us an accurate,
Doesn't help you?
it doesn't help us
We'll
with
just have a
other
number of people
programs,
there
but
and
if
help
we
as
have,
many as we can.
Okay, we
Absolutely.
can have standbys, you know, I'm sure I can get a few people to stand
and I mean,
by,
if you-
call them in, they'll come running in.
And if
I
the-
mean,
if
you know,
have to
we're 2
run till
miles
8:15
away.
or 8:30, I think you can keep the lights.
Absolutely.
that's not gonna work, but.
All right, turn the lights off.
But we could also, I mean,
How many machines do we
it
have? How many
sounds
computers
like,
we have? We
we
can bring
have-
laptops in if we have to. What a wonderful
we
problem.
have 7 or
to
8
have.
computers available
Oh,
at
sure.
the same time, so.
Yeah, that should be plenty.
And then I
That
can
should be
bring
plenty.
my laptop, I can bring this
Exactly.
laptop
Right, I
here.
say we
Yeah, we
also
can
have a
have
number of laptop computers
Ah,
that we
fine.
could, set up overflow in the small meeting room.
Be a great
Perfect.
problem to have. We're not gonna have that
So-
kind of issue. Okay.
I think that's a
You know,
great
it actually
idea.
might even work well, we have the 6 laptops, set those up in the small room.
Yeah.
And then that way, there's a room, people can go in, they can close the door, it's a little more private than being at the public computers. And then if we had a big overflow, then we could overflow to the public
Yeah.
area.
I think that's a great idea.
So,
I mean, if we get 30, 40 people, it'd be great.
I mean, most people have access to some sort of
Well,
online.
based on this
Exactly.
report of 10 years ago.
Yeah, but 10 years ago, it said population with broadband, internet, and computing device was 87%. Can you
Yeah.
believe that, 10
Right.
years ago?
So if
So now it
13%
has to
didn't
be.
have it, now it's probably down
Higher.
to 3 or 4%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I
great.
don't see it.
And if I may, Lois, would you mind putting together a little flyer for that?
Certainly, I will draft something up and send it to you all to take a look at.
Okay.
If you want to get a large population coming in, offer them pizza.
Okay.
Tell them they have to spend money on the town and they'll all show up. There you go. That was like the biggest meeting I ever saw. People were standing in the aisles.
All of
So
our meetings
I just
were-
want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. So he had total housing units and total occupied housing units. Is occupied housing units the number that responded to the census? I'm
That's
trying
what
to-
it sounded like he said.
That's
That
what it
was who
sounded like,
responded.
right?
Yeah.
So that's a 62%
You also
response
don't know
rate.
the date that this was done. If hypothetically, if this was done in the summer,
Yeah.
he probably
April.
would have 50% unoccupied.
Well, I'm trying to
So-
determine whether this number, it was the response rate to the census.
No, I don't
That's
think
what
so.
what he seemed to indicate.
No, because he's got a response rate up here of 79%. So this is probably.
No, that's the ACS.
That's
Yeah,
the
the
community
response rate on
survey.
the
But the ACS is not the 2010 census.
No, but you can
You could
assume
ass-
if
you
this
could
was it,
extrapolate.
yeah.
That's gonna be like 80%.
So I would think the response rate of the 2010 census was probably in the 80-90% level.
That's a show me.
I believe I have some documentation where it was 82%, if I'm not mistaken, was our response rate from 2010. Don't quote me on it, but I can get you that
Okay.
information for
I'm
sure.
just trying to set a benchmark for ourselves,
Well,
Oh,
would
I have
guess that
100%.
like a goal, you
In
know?
my building, we
Yeah.
probably have a third unoccupied on April 1st.
Right,
Because right now, height of the season, we're only 80% occupied.
okay,
So that
So-
would make sense to me.
okay. Well, yeah, but however, occupied rate is different than did you answer rate.
Yeah, they're two different
Yeah,
subjects
two different
entirely.
issues, right?
Yeah, but there we are, the last census, 10
Okay.
years ago,
Yeah.
was 80-something percent.
Okay,
So our goal is to probably try to get to
Uh-huh.
like, let's say 90%.
95 or something.
Oh, that'd be huge,
Yeah,
95.
yeah, yeah.
95 would be great.
Yeah, that's like unheard of.
Absolutely.
I have already spoken to a few groups about this, you know, Delray Beach Women's League, the Delray Beach Municipal Golf League, the Ladies League, and one other group. And the most thing that they're surprised about, and the questions they ask, is that they didn't know that they can answer the census if they're not citizens. Okay, so all the Canadians, you know, who are here, they
Right.
can answer the census here. It's no skin off their teeth. They're not answering it back home. They're answering it
Absolutely.
here. And that's, you know, between $2,500 and now he's saying $4,000 a year, a person that's gonna come into the community. And they were shocked and they, you know, they were really listening when I told them that they really needed to answer this, that there's no citizenship requirement, no permanent residency requirement, the way I put it to them was whether they rent, you know, whether they own, rent, or tent, they can answer the census here.
Absolutely, I like that. Own, rent, or tent.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, I got a couple issues here.
Okay.
That I think we're up against. One, I think the materials that we're getting from Census are absolutely horrible.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
all over the place.
Yes, they're the opposite of KISS.
Yes.
So, and I think that our population is just probably more sophisticated than the general population out there. So, and Census is trying to communicate to everybody, so they don't have the opportunity to pinpoint themselves like we do. That's one issue. The other issue is everything that we've been doing is really quite good, and I compliment you and everybody else that has been working on it. But unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity here to communicate, we don't have the vehicles to communicate to our entire population. Much of what we're doing is communicating to the same people over and over and over again, and it's a very narrow audience. You know, it's a handful of people that come into our building. And it's a slice that comes to the library. And it's the same people that come to the library all the time. But I don't know what percentage of our population comes, but I would suspect maybe it's 15 or 20%. So I think we have an issue here that we're not getting out to, I'm gonna say, our population now of 8,000 people, because we're in the height of the season. I don't know what percent we're reaching, but it's hypothetically maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500. Our email list for our, you call it the subscription list.
There's probably 400 at
400.
that. Yeah. There's not there, and it's a voluntary subscription list, so it's not everybody in the town.
I know the email list that we used for Evelyn David's campaign a year ago. I got that up to 1,200.
Oh, great.
So, I mean, we certainly can use that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, now, but that's not 8,000.
It's still not, right?
So even using that, we're less than 15% using that list. And that list contains yours as well. I mean, that's
Yes.
an amalgamation, has yours also. So we have a problem that we're not reaching our audience here.
Do all of the condo managers and HOA presidents, are they all on that
They are,
condo list?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Because
they're
that
on.
seems like the broadest
That's why I'm
reach
saying
to
we've got to get
people.
into the buildings.
Yeah, that's where we got the idea.
That's where we have to
and
get in.
If anybody can get us, this young lady can do it, okay?
I'm going to try my hardest.
She's chairing
That's
the-
why we made her chair.
I'm definitely going to try my
Because it pays well.
hardest.
Right. Now, Marshall may not be happy with us making her chair.
He gave a stamp of approval if it need be. I'm here to help in any way that I
know
can.
you are, and we're here to assist.
Absolutely.
So I was starting to think of, okay, how can we get the word out to everybody? Well, it's gonna take a couple of dollars, so, but it's a town effort. So one thought I had, and bear with me, sounds stupid at the beginning, but the street signs, as ugly as they are, the candidates put up during elections,
Oh, like lawn signs?
lawn signs,
That's a great idea.
where you need permission of the owners. But I
Right.
can't think of any owners that would say no,
Right.
because it's not gonna be up for 3 months.
Right.
Yeah. Put
I
them
mean-
up for a couple of weeks in March.
Precisely. Maybe they go up, I don't know, second week of March or something. They're not expensive. I think they cost us, I'm gonna guess $400. And I know, there's certain, they're only 4x4.
4x4.
They're not
So
all that
We
big.
can only have 4 on the property.
Listen, the vote no signs were huge.
Yeah. Now, it's hard, we'll have to be creative in what we put on them, because you put too much, nobody can read it,
Right.
And we'll come up with a little slogan,
Yeah.
and maybe we put them up there for 3 weeks.
I like the
It's a thought.
idea.
I like that idea.
You get everybody driving by.
You get everybody.
Absolutely.
Now, we're gonna get people more than Highland Beach, but everybody in Highland Beach has a car, they drive.
Right,
We'll
right.
certainly get awareness out of it.
Right,
And then, we hit them with email blasts and everything else.
right, and personal presentations.
Personal presentations, and
And I don't know
maybe we
what,
do a direct mail thing, but that's expensive.
that's what I was gonna ask. How did you feel about direct mail? I mean, we do have the property appraiser list, so we have that. We can print in-house. So I don't think it would be a substantial cost. It would be a little time-consuming, but I don't really know how effective direct mail is.
Well, if
it's worth
we
it.
create it as a campaign, utilizing the same color schemes, the same logos, and we don't put too much on a direct mail piece, and we do it in a timely manner, maybe. And we can cost it out and see.
What are your thoughts, Lynn? How do you feel about that?
About direct mail?
Direct mail?
I personally think that every time you hit the population, every additional time you hit the population is a good thing.
Okay,
If we can afford it, we should do it.
okay.
I mean, I like all the posters, all the flyers, they can be put up in the building lobbies or where people have those boxes where they have their notifications, whatever.
Yeah.
All that's great.
Here's my problem with the flyers. I haven't seen them. Excuse me, I should be talking into this.
Yeah.
My problem with the flyers is, no, I haven't seen them, but I know I'm not gonna like them.
I have a complete list on my computer of all the promotional material that they've provided so far, because I've been working with Sandy, the
Okay.
League of Women Voters, and all of it looks like what's in here.
Okay.
It's all the same, and it's front and back, or if not, multiple pages. It's a lot, and it's
Okay.
not really,
But if we're going to do a campaign, it all has to be synergistic Gotta be the same fonts, the same colors, the
Correct.
same message.
Right.
We can't commingle everything.
I agree.
I agree, and that's why I said that one pager, that we have possibly the 9 questions, including the 3 ways that you're going to, that you can
I don't
respond.
even know if you need to put the 9 questions. You just have to say it's simple. It's only 9 questions, because, you can give a website, the 2020census.gov, and they can see the questions if they
I
want.
loved your idea of saying, this is the envelope.
I think
This
that's
is
a
what's
great
coming.
idea.
Here's what's coming, here's the envelope. You don't have to be a citizen, you don't have to be a permanent resident, you don't have to do this, but here's what you get if you answer it. $2,500 or $4,000, whatever the number is, $4,000 a person for the next 10 years to this town.
Absolutely.
And the key
Well,
is,
it's
and
to the county, unfortunately, not the town.
well, okay, but you get your
Funnels
share.
through. Funnels through.
So the key that seems to move people when I talk to them is this issue of where you're laying your head on April 1st.
That is the big one.
It's a big one, it's gotta go in there, because people don't understand, well, I live up north 3 months a year, I come down here. Where are you living on April 1st? Answer as if you're living here on April 1st, if you are living here.
Yeah, it's
If your
just-
head's on a pillow here on April 1st,
Boom, 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 simple
answer the
bullets.
census.
Lynn, would you mind putting together a little one-pager for us?
Not at all.
Okay, I think you have some great ideas, and I've been hearing a lot of good things that I can see incorporated on there. So if you wouldn't mind putting together that one-pager,
I'll put it together a draft, I'm not graphically talented, but I'll put together something.
that's fine.
You
And
can
once
take
you,
it and manipulate it.
absolutely, once we have a basis and we all agree on the content, we can jazz it up. We have Beverly in the clerk's office who's really good with Photoshop and flyers and things like that. So we can jazz it up, but the content-wise, if you wouldn't mind putting that together, that would be great.
I will do that.
Perfect. So we have our census response night at the library from March 25th, 3 to 7. We're going to put together the one-page flyer, and then once that is complete, we'll get that out, possibly by direct mail. Do we want to
Let's just see what it would cost.
see what the costs are? Okay. I
The
will,
beauty of the direct mail, excuse me if you interrupt.
absolutely,
Is we know we reach the whole population.
exactly.
That's the only benefit of it.
Well, you
And-
send out those town, those newsletters.
Yes, we have it. We've been switching over to the email side of it because we were seeing a lot of people weren't getting them. They were getting thrown out, and it was a
A lot of expense.
exactly. But something like this won't be, our newsletter was 15 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when
So
you-
this would be a lot
Excuse me,
smaller.
when you check the direct mail, just think of it as a postcard.
Yes,
Yeah, just a card, we'll look at different sizes, but just a card printed both sides, very simple.
okay.
If you need a printer, I've got one for you if you need one.
Okay, we have, I will probably need another. We have one that we use, but it's
Oh,
always good
okay.
to get a quote because someone may come in a little bit cheaper.
Don't worry about it.
And with their materials available, like League Women Voters has these, which are bookmarks. These are kind of general, but
Oh, bookmarks would be perfect for
yeah,
us to have at the
I have
library.
a ton at my house. I'll get-
See, the problem still comes down to, we're talking to the same people over and over again.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
true.
you're-
We've got to reach out. That's the hard
Right.
part.
Now, with
And-
our
and to
different,
keep giving more materials to the same people over and over again isn't a great return on investment.
that's true. I was thinking for some of the different activities at the library, I had talked to Jacqueline about this when we went over the schedule, and different activities bring in different
Well,
audiences.
that's a different story then. That's
So
cool.
that is, now, not all of those people are necessarily Highland Beach, but obviously a lot of them
Well,
will
that-
be, so.
Then it makes more sense than I
Then
can
we can, for some of, have things out at the different activities that we know will not just be the same people
Great,
every week, every time.
great. See, like, I love buttons, but again, if it's the same people, again, not gonna help us. But the nice thing
Right.
about buttons is people see buttons, more people see them. You get an ongoing continuation of the message. But
I have a message in Spanish, but that's not a big deal in this town. But I'm thinking that we have to have an outreach too, maybe to the town employees. And, the police department, the fire department, the road workers, the, landscape people, all that kind of stuff.
An outreach to them, and meaning in which way?
Well, maybe there should be something that comes from the town, from your office,
Mm-hmm.
to the employees.
Oh, yes, we have, that's what on our everyone is on our email signature list. Every time they send out an email, it's on there. On our employee email.
This is a Spanish statement, I'll send you the digital copy.
Perfect, thank you. But the police department does actually have a Facebook and a Twitter that they maintain.
Yeah.
So I'll get with the lieutenant, and see if they'll be okay with putting something on their Facebook and their Twitter page.
Right.
We don't maintain one in the actual town, but the police department does. And all of the staff members, they're very aware of the census, so that's one thing that we definitely have that covered. But any other suggestions or ideas?
Would it be worth it, and we could use some of the library laptops at the spring fling to have some of the laptops there for if somebody wanted to complete it there at the table?
Because spring fling is on March 21st, so I think that would be a great
Well, they
idea.
would have to bring their code. I mean, they have to know, they have to have their code.
So they have to be planning to fill it out. like
Okay.
that, okay.
Okay. Any
What
other-
about St. Lucy's?
So that was when I mentioned the election, that was one of the things I wanted to kind of discuss a little bit further. Lynn, I don't know, do you have a relationship with Father Horgan, or
I do not.
you do not?
will be
Doug,
if
do
I
you have
like
a
it.
relationship?
I'm just starting to develop one, but what would you like?
I mean, we
Just
can-
for the election, I think it may be nice outside of the 150-foot buffer. All the residents will be coming, well, most of the residents will be coming to vote for the presidential primary, just standing out, giving out our little flyer or,
Only the Democratic
It's only the
Party will
Democratic
be able to
primary.
vote. It's not everybody.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
understood.
Don't know how much of a turnout there'll be,
Right.
but if I see him before that, which I'm sure I will, what would you like me to ask him for?
If you would have any objection to someone standing out there handing out census information?
And also, he should ask him whether he'd be willing to speak to his congregations in March about it.
Sure.
'Cause
That would be great as well.
There are people who come in from outside the community. to his
Absolutely.
congregations.
Yeah, I don't think, I certainly wouldn't even guess what he would say, but I
We
guess
can
I
get
have
the
to guess. I
script.
would certainly guess that he would be more than happy to support it.
Yeah, we can
But,
give him a little
And don't they have a number of
Yeah,
groups,
we'll
like a
give them the
woman's
bullet
group
points that
and
you're
a
gonna put
men's, a men's club and a woman's group?
They do.
Sub-organizations
Yes.
in the
I-
church,
I
that might be a
can't-
good place to
I
be.
can't imagine the church not getting behind it.
Right.
But I'd be happy to talk with them about it.
Perfect. So we start building that relationship with St. Lucie, and
Sure.
then I know Commissioner Gossett-Seidman is on their women's subcommittee. So I can speak to her as well and see if she can just get the word out through that organization, through the church.
And who do you know, you know the general manager at the Delray Sands?
I know the chief has a great relationship with the Delray Sands. I personally don't, but we can definitely reach out to them to have them put flyers out, or what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
the
they would
Delray
always,
Sands?
they'll always cooperate.
Well,
with the town.
my thoughts, to have flyers or posters there, but also to get them to donate something so that we can use it as a spiff for the.
Oh, for the
Very nice.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably give like a breakfast for 4 or 2
Yeah,
or something like that, yeah,
Well,
a
let's go for the
drawing.
goal. Dinner for 4. Ask for that.
I think breakfast for
No, we
dinner
can
2.
negotiate down to breakfast for 2, but let's start at dinner for 4. Or, their buffet, their Sunday buffet, something like that.
They'll end up with drinks, but yeah.
That's good too.
So I will put that on my to-do list to reach out to the Delray Sands for hopefully their contribution for the census response night, and also asking for their approval to put out the flyers and posters in the restaurant and maybe around the area in the hotel. Any other suggestions, ideas?
I just had a question.
Sure.
As this process is going on, is there any update that we get from the census of a percentage of people that have completed it, or it's just at the end?
You mean,
They let you know.
Actually, I don't know who gets that information, but they've actually started counting this week. How? They started with difficult outreach programs. So I think they started in
Alaska.
Toluca Bay, Alaska.
Yes.
Where they have tribes in this certain area, and that starts this week. So here's the way to get, you should go on the census site, 2020census.gov, and you can sign up for their emails.
I have, and they're interesting.
You will be inundated.
Oh,
but,
yes, yes.
You will get 6 emails a day, but you get a lot of information about where it's starting, what they're doing, how they're doing, the ads, the TV ads you can click on, all kinds of stuff. So I'd suggest.
Because that would be interesting as we go along, but also to help us for any future things to see if it maybe help us gauge how
They have
effective.
said they're not gonna cut off the process this whole year until they reach about 95% counted. But how do they know? Okay, so they have some sort of benchmark already where they think the population is, and they're, headed for that spot. So they're gonna be keeping close tabs on it. Whether Sandy has been great. I find that there's not a lot coming down from the regional offices, that he can answer about. They've not communicated well with their local
Big
people,
surprise.
right? Yeah, and you can see by the materials and stuff that, there's a lot of loose ends, there's a lot of holes in it. It doesn't seem at times to be well organized, but it is what it is. This is the first year, one thing is, this is the first year that anybody's been able to do it online, okay? And there is a sheet that has a lot about security, the cyber security, where they say once you put the information online and you press submit, that data gets congregated with, demographics from all around your locality and your region, and it's then encrypted. So they really can't go in after that and identify any one person. Now that's still gonna not be satisfactory for a lot of people. So that's why they have the online telephone system. You can call the online telephone system, give them the information over that. They have 13 different languages. And I asked this question, where are the call centers? They're all in the US. 5 call centers all in the US. So that should cut down or at least mitigate the problem of understanding people who are taking information.
Absolutely.
Can we, are you done?
Yeah.
Can we move back to how do we reach more people?
Sure.
Because we only have one idea so far.
It was a good one, though.
Well, we have 2 good ideas too. The lawn signs, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah, we got the lawn signs and we have the possibility of some direct mail.
Yes. And then the census response, we call it the census response night at the library?
That's not going to bring in a lot of people. It's a
Okay.
good idea, we're gonna do it,
Right,
but we still haven't figured out how to communicate it.
right.
Okay, that would be communicated on the direct mail if in fact we do direct mail.
Yes.
And on the email, but we know that's at best if we use my old list, which we will update.
Right.
By the way, we got that from the voting list.
Okay,
That's public data, as you know.
right.
So you get that from, 2,000 people voted last year. So the town ought to get that list right away. So right away, your list is gonna go up to 2,000.
Yes. We have all.
I'll give you that one.
We have the property list, it just doesn't have emails. Because when we requested it from the property appraiser, you don't have to put your email address as a point of contact. So we have physical addresses for everyone that has it
Yeah.
in the town, but,
And there's only I don't know, I don't remember the number, but it's not a large number of people that when they registered gave their email. So we took that, we merged it with all the other ones, sent out an email to see if those people would want to get our emails.
Right.
And a lot of people opted out, obviously. But I think we sent it in on around 1,200 good ones.
okay,
I'll share that one with you.
absolutely.
But at any rate, we need to come up with other ways. We got 8,000 people here. And other than direct mail, there's no way to reach them.
A plane over the beach with
What
college
about,
students with those flip each other things.
what about one of
Yeah,
those
somebody
big
else.
banners like they do
Not
for
a
the
bad
spring
idea.
fling or
Wait a
light up the
minute.
holidays that we have in front of town hall?
Oh, I think that's a great idea.
What?
The banners that we normally
Yeah,
Like the
advertise.
big banners they
Yeah.
put for light up the holidays
Now
out
we're
in front of
cooking,
town
yeah.
hall.
I mean, let's do some brainstorming.
Light
here.
up the census.
The longer the
Maybe we
list,
could just cross out holidays and put a big sticker over it.
Census.
Use the same one. You only have to, you only need it for a couple of weeks every 10 years.
and if we come up with a number of ideas, and we'll go back through them and cross out the ones we don't like.
And of course, we have to have the commission's approval, especially, and as I said, they're supportive, but with money and dollars,
Right.
at their next meeting on the 21st, they'll have an action report that's included from what we've spoken about. And obviously, they need to give their 100% approval for us to go ahead and spend the dollars on it. But I don't think it's going to be a substantial amount, and I don't foresee any issues with it. But the banner is a great suggestion, banners to possibly have out here.
Could be one of these, I mean, it's a little crazy, but you know, the census is coming, it's 47 days away. Census is coming, it's 46 days away.
The countdown.
The countdown.
You gotta have a little fun here, you know? Anybody drive down from up north on 95?
Right.
What is that community? It's-
South of the border.
South of the border, how many miles away?
I stayed there one time, I convinced my husband.
Was it
That's all it takes is once.
That's all it took.
been there, done that?
Barbara could put signs on the turtle steaks out there when you're checking them.
And I'm just thinking also the police department has their message board that they put out for certain events. Maybe I can ask them what their schedule would be like to put out the message board.
Their light up digital, is it a light, oh, yeah.
Yes,
Where
their
they say-
digital message board that they have, they normally put it out for like events that we're having.
That's a
Hello.
great idea.
I can ask them.
Absolutely,
Big
100%.
signs that will arrest you if you don't fill out
You
your sign.
betcha.
It's the law.
Census or else.
How about you get a free pass on your first ticket? Yeah,
That will
no,
get
great.
everyone out there.
Definitely we
They're
should
good
use
for that
that.
anyway, I know.
Yeah.
Personal experience.
Can you wait after this meeting so I can chat with you about something? No, not a problem.
I came down to ask a question that's not going to be suited, apparently it's not, but yes, I will.
Thank you.
Barbara, did you have any,
Pardon me?
do you have any suggestions since you are our public
Well, this
here?
is open.
This thing about getting the dinners or breakfast from the Delray's hands, so the 46 people that show up that night are the only ones for that? That's gonna,
I don't know how we have a lottery.
well, I
The
think
rest
that
of-
you have people actually come at some point during the week and sign up and say, I said mine today, or something.
Okay, we can
Honor
do that.
code.
Yeah, right.
Honor code.
Yeah.
But, so that makes them part of the thing, and they say to their friend, you know what? I know you sent it in, but, you know, you can sign up for being, your name being drawn out of the hat. Do you
Oh, I see. If
Yeah,
you
can
don't
have a
come for
box-
that.
If you don't-
A
if
box
you-
at checkout that says,
I'm not gonna wait for the
Put your
library.
business
I don't
card.
wanna be having to wait with mine to go to the library that night.
Yeah.
That's true. We don't want to encourage them not to do it
So
right
what-
away.
Right.
What you need is, they can come down at some point to the library.
yeah,
or
if you
whatever.
filled out the census, we could send an email.
I already did mine.
That's great.
Come down to the library and,
I like that.
Or
Put your
maybe the
sh-
table at the spring fling would be
yeah,
a
put
place
your
for
shit in
that.
for a free, if you filled out the census.
I love it.
That's true.
I love
How do
it.
I know you
Get more
filled it
people
out?
involved.
How many questions were there?
What?
There you go. What
That's a
did you
great
fill out
idea.
on number 9?
Yeah, what did you fill out at number 9?
So possibly maybe for the week, since we said the 25th would be our day, and then Spring Fling is on the 21st, which is that Saturday before. Maybe
That's
at,
great to promote it.
at the Spring Fling event at the table, we have the
Right.
sign-in sheet and let them know if you've already filled it out, you can come to the library and put your name to be entered into the lottery, or you can come to the library on the 25th to fill out your census.
Absolutely.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay.
Not on a little, not an index card, but even a business card.
Yeah,
empty
so-
business
right,
card.
exactly.
Your name, your phone number. that's
Right.
all.
Perfect.
Oh, no, you need your email.
Oh, there you go. Your name
Has
and
to
your
be an
email.
Because that's how you'll be notified.
Yeah, then you can
Then you
collect those
get their
emails.
list of emails.
And then we get their email addresses. All right.
All right, so we just picked up a couple more good ideas.
20.
All right, so anybody else has, more ideas, we know where to find you,
Well,
young
I
lady.
keep going to these meetings, the League of Women Voter meetings and stuff, and so I hear from people who are all over the county, so if they come up with anything else
Yeah.
brilliant, I'll let you know.
Good.
And that's the
Mostly
same.
people are doing a lot of these things.
I'm doing the same thing, keeping my eyes out for the other municipalities to see what they're doing, what we can mirror, and what's working. So I'm also keeping my eyes out. So if I see
And I
anything,
do
I'll
the
share
Same
it.
thing with the other libraries. I know they're
Great.
all doing things, so.
Perfect. I think we have a great game plan.
Who's our missing team member?
His JB Frost, Jacqueline Frost, who was sitting here, her husband, he had to unexpectedly go out of town.
Okay.
But she was taking notes for him, and he is willing to do whatever we need necessary. Do we need to schedule another meeting at this point? Or would we like to schedule another meeting at this point? Or do we kind of have an idea of where we're going?
I'd like to, I mean,
Want to do a follow-up?
yeah, fine, I'm fine with that. I'd like to start to get stuff on the calendar for things that we need to present at.
Absolutely. So my goal this, by the end of this week, I'm going to make contact with all of the condo managers, presidents. I don't know if they'll be able to give me the yes as soon as I get them on the phone, but I'm going to start picking up the phone and making those phone calls. And
So
with,
we'd like to request 10 or 15 minutes at your whatever next meeting you have.
yes,
We'd like
Right,
to
right at
schedule
the
it.
start.
Right at the
We'll get
start.
in, we'll get out.
in and out. And then once I start building up that schedule, I'll make sure to share that information with you so that if you're able to
Volunteer for
attend,
dates.
absolutely. And how long are we thinking for a follow-up meeting?
Time
Yes.
out a minute.
Yes.
Obviously, we're welcome to go to those meetings, but the commissioners can handle it because they'll have your cheat sheet. The one pager that you're putting together,
Yeah.
that's what they'll present.
Yes,
And then they'll just
But the
give a
one
quick
page cheat
update.
sheet, it's better if there's gonna be questions, trust me.
oh, yeah.
So it's better if people know a little bit more in depth about what the process is, what the dates are, what you can do, what you can't do, they need to have I'll try to get, maybe Sandy's presentation, they should get it.
No.
and read
Sure.
it
Oh,
and
yeah,
kind of absorb
yeah, but I don't
that.
want to give that at a condo meeting.
No, but they can
Yeah.
have it for their
Oh,
own
for sure.
educational purposes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But
And
we're-
Sandy also offered himself as well if we needed an extra
We're
resource.
trying to kill two birds with one stone here.
Yeah.
One is definitely the census.
Right.
That's primary.
Right.
Second is we're trying to start an outreach program so that the commission is communicating more with the
Yeah, they're more
residents.
visible than they
They're
usually
more
are.
visible. We want to start gaining resident input to the commission. So we said, hey, here's an opportunity to do two things at once.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And we don't want to take up 30 minutes of their time at an annual meeting also. So we kind of want to get in and get out,
Right, okay.
okay? But again, you're welcome, but I didn't want to take up all the time on the census. It's more of an
No,
awareness
I
thing.
don't think you should take up all the time.
Okay.
But it's a perfect opportunity, especially at annual meetings, because that's probably the most populous
That's what,
meeting that they
exactly,
have.
that's why we
Absolutely.
took this time.
Yeah.
But it's really just to build awareness, let them know, it's where you're gonna be April 1st, takes 5 minutes. When you
Right.
get the envelope, stop what
If
you're
you don't
doing,
do it, you're
fill it out right
depriving the town
away.
of money
go
for the next
online.
10 years.
Ex- Exactly.
And it might be nice to encourage those condo managers and the people with the office, maybe encourage them, since they all have clubhouses and places, that they could have an event maybe for their building, like they had a
That's
morning,
true.
come down,
Yeah,
have
yeah.
coffee. You know, we'll
Yeah.
have computers set up and someone can help
Right,
you
we'll bring a
fill out
laptop
your
down and
form
help
if
you
you need it.
right.
Where they could capture some of their
They-
own residents.
Yes, however, only because I live in a building. Okay. There's a handful of elderly people in every building, assuming they're all like mine, and they probably are, that need that assistance.
Yeah.
The managers know who they are. So they don't need an event for it. 90+% of the people, if they don't do it right away, it's because they're lazy.
Right.
Well, what happens is if you don't do it right away, you're
It
going
goes
to
in
get a
a,
follow-up.
it goes in a pile of stuff, and you gotta remind them, but the managers are the keys to that, you're 100% right there. We got the manager's name, and we'll get after them.
No, just to
And you're right,
understand,
that they'll know who the people
They
that
know,
maybe they need to.
they know who they
but
are.
understand if they don't do the online or the phone survey right away, within 10 days, they get a follow-up. They'll start to be mailing out the actual
Which
form,
is great.
the hard copy.
Right.
Okay? If they don't answer the hard copy, somewhere down the line, in the next couple of weeks, they get at
Right.
the door.
Yeah.
If you want to avoid that, there's another meme that's going around is avoid the knock.
That's really hard in the building.
Well, not so much, because they've had real issues with gated communities and buildings, and apparently, this actual census employee, the census taker, who has to go and do this, will have the same access as law enforcement.
Wow.
I would have verified that, that's why I came today, I wanted to ask.
I will tell you, in my
That is
development,
what I have been told.
that person will not get into our development. And if
They
They
will
are,
get in
they are a
eventually.
federal
Yes, they
government
will.
If they get
worker.
in the development, they're not getting in our building.
Well,
In 2008,
If they got a cop with them, they will.
They will be,
Barbara, if you wouldn't mind
IT,
coming to the mic,
just
I'm
like
sorry.
law
Thank you.
enforcement
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, do I need my real name or what?
Everybody knows you.
We know who you are, but for the record, yes, please,
Yes,
to be formal.
Barbara James. In 2010, it was our first census here. We had moved here in 2001. And we got the envelope in 2010, and we filled it out right away and sent it. Then we got another envelope identical, and we didn't do anything with it because we had sent one in, because it's the household, it's not an individual person. And then we got another envelope and figured, well, they must have forgotten or couldn't find it, so we filled that out. Then we got another one. We got 4, and then we got the knock at the door. They had to get in our building and go to the 12th floor and knock at our door.
yes, they will. They will get, they are, I am told that
So-
they have the same access as law enforcement.
Telling them we sent 2 in, they said it doesn't matter. So were we counted 3 times because they did all the questions with us? There was never anybody to ask.
Yeah, right.
So that's why, when I saw this, I missed the comment section of your
Do you
meeting.
have security in your building? Mm-hmm. Did security call you to tell you that they were here?
They're apparently allowed in. So that's something that maybe I'm assuming
Wow.
it's allowed.
I
It
am
is, and
shocked.
they have said that every census taker or worker is a member of the federal government,
That's
and they're
right.
treated as such.
And they were lovely ladies.
Wow.
They were cool. I assume we're from town.
Right.
But they said it doesn't matter. Now that answered,
Well, that was 2010.
so did they get, well, that's,
Yeah, they're probably worse now,
Wow.
just saying.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Crazy.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
For 9 years, I've been waiting for this moment in front of the stage.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.
I mean, this is one of the ways that they're trying to convince,
Thank you.
the non,
I'm glad you're here.
credentialed community to respond quickly. Because you're
Yeah.
saying, if you don't want people knocking on your door,
That's crazy.
call or get online and do this.
I mean, to me, that would be a big deterrent. I don't want someone
Absolutely.
knocking on my door.
For sure.
Exactly. And they're also, there's a piece out, there's a flyer that has to do with, they know, and there was recently an article, I could send it to you all. They know that there's going to try to be fraud. They've already had political parties sending out fundraising requests, flyers based on, with census stuff on it.
Wow.
So people think that they have to do something with this, and they're fundraising with it. Now, they've tried to put the damper on that, but that's happened. And now they're also having to show people, what the census taker ID is gonna look like or whatever, so that if they do get the knock, they answer it, because a lot of people won't.
That's true. When I went to the Florida Municipal Communications Association conference, the census, one of the census partners from Atlanta was there, and she went through, this is what an ID has on it, this is what you need to look for, because not everybody is a census taker, but they're trying to fabricate their identification, but there are certain things that you look for to validate that someone is actually a
So there
census
will be
taker.
scams, you can count on it, but then you have to educate the public to mitigate, or be sensitive to that.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think that was great discussion, and we brought up some points that we all didn't know, so great.
So we want a follow-up meeting, just to,
A follow-up meeting, I think. How long are we thinking? A couple of weeks, a month?
You probably need a couple of weeks to pull the stuff together?
Yes, I know we're working on the 2 flyers for the one-page event that Lynn's going to take care of, one-page document, and then Lois is going to take care of the census night. And I'll start coordinating with the police department, the clerk's office to see about the banner, get the quotes for the direct-to-mail costs and the lawn signs. So I think a couple of weeks should be enough time to get all of that done.
so you think the 29th? It's a Wednesday. February 5th is the next Wednesday.
29th. That works for me. The last week of March or the last week of January or the first week of February, pretty open.
Same for me, I could do either of those.
I'm out of the country the 30th through the 3rd, but other than that, I'm available.
Okay. Doug, any conflicts
I'm
or?
looking.
Okay.
I could do, you're out of the country again, when, please?
The 30th through the 3rd.
I could do the afternoon of the 28th or the afternoon of the 29th.
29th,
That's 2 weeks away.
that's perfect for me.
That's
It's
good.
fine for me.
So the
Okay.
afternoon of the 29th.
1 o'clock was okay for everyone time, or do you want to switch?
A little later would be better for me.
Sure, 2
2
o'clock?
o'clock okay for everybody? Okay, 2
Okay,
o'clock it is.
perfect. So January 29th at 2 o'clock. Okay, any other questions, comments, feedback? No? Okay, so I'll move on to the announcements. We do have a financial advisory board meeting tomorrow, January 16th at 3 o'clock PM here in the commission chambers. Town Hall will be closed January 20th, 2020 in observation of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we have a town commission meeting on January 21st, 2020 at 1:30 PM. With there being no further business, I call the meeting to adjourn at 2:36 PM.
I'm back here again.
You have to stay.
Sleep here.
I'll give you this. It's little Urzet's card, so
Oh,
you can
thank you
contact
so
me if
much.
you need me.
Thank you.